Before we start talking about Arif's wonderful, very evocative photo journal, photo essay called P.S. Pistonji, which is a book, his photo essay on this gentleman, P.S. Pistonji. Arif did not know this when I was asked to be in conversation with him, that Arif had actually been very kind and taken the public relationing photographs for me when my first novel, Mass Transit, was published back in 1998. And then he very kindly, when we met the other day in Karachi, when he came over to the Pioneer Book House and we chatted about his book, he took another photograph of me, which was so kind. And thank you so much, Arif, for that. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to talk about your wonderful book. And would you like to start by telling us a little bit about P.S. Pistonji? What I'd like to know, first off, is, how did you get the idea of photographing this wonderful octogenarian at that time?
Can this be on? Chal raha hai? Okay, so I met him in 2013, and I've been photographing him since then. What happened was that he liked an old Parsi temple photograph which was published in the newspaper, and he sent his assistant to my office, and he wanted it, and I said, okay, I'll consult with the photographer and give you the picture. And when I gave him the picture, he said, why don't you talk to my Seth, because my Seth has been here and in the city for a long, long time, and it'll be good for you. So I went to his house. I took time and I went to his house with my camera, of course. And as he opened his door and welcomed me, I had decided I want to photograph him because he had a great face and the surroundings were very good. He lived in Parsi Colony. He still lives in Parsi Colony. And it's in between M.A. Jinnah Road, Karachi, and the Soldier Bazaar area.
So for those of you who might not know exactly what that means, M.A. Jinnah Road was previously Bandar Road in Karachi. It was the main artery made in the mid-1800s, late 1800s, yep. And it was the main business administrative area, because Bandar, as you all know, means port, right? And so Karachi being a seaport, that was the main business area. And so the colony that Arif is talking about is just behind Soldier Bazaar, which is right off of M.A. Jinnah Road, near Quaid-e-Azam's Mazar.
So when I first started photographing him, the book was not a project. I just wanted photographs because I document my city anyways. And as this documentation went on, and after a couple of years when I had a decent compilation, I decided that it could look good as a photo essay and maybe a book. So I asked him and he said, okay, but like, why would you want to do this? Who would buy the book? And it was not about who's going to buy the book, it was like basically documenting people who make up the city. Mm-hmm. And I like to work on the periphery and on the edges of the city and find people which like motivate me. It was like a self-motivating project, Mm-hmm. I wanted to just photograph him, and because, photographs is nothing but accumulation of memories. Mm-hmm. So I could see a lot of memories in that house because he'd lived there for 85 years. He was born in Kamadi. Kamadi is like the port. Mm-hmm. And he lived there for 6 years, and then he came down to the Parsi Colony. Mm-hmm. This is his mother's house, which he's now sold to another Parsi, because Parsis normally sell houses to their own clan. I mean, they can't sell it to any outside their religion. Mm-hmm. It's one of their rules.
Within that colony, yes.
Mm-hmm. And now he lives as a tenant in the area which he resides. So it's like a different place now. So what you see in the book is, some of it is no longer there.
Yeah. So I found that very, evocative of that part of Karachi that, Arif has documented, and for some odd reason, I too am sort of obsessed with. But it's this idea that there was this beautiful, rambling mansion that was in very good, condition. People lived there, a family lived there, and over the ages, slowly and steadily, that family receded and atrophied, and so did that home, until finally this fine older gentleman resides in a small portion of that home, and has the good sense and the largeness and generosity of spirit to have family members and others occupy the rest of the house, and also, in a way, look after him.
Actually, unfortunately, he didn't have any family members. There were people in his community which were living downstairs. He wasn't charging them or anything. But he never married. He's been a single man all his life. And his elder brother, who'd passed away, has a son who lives in the US. So the money from the sale of the house has gone to him. And he has no blood relative living in the city as such.
Right.
But for me, this became an essay of somebody who is basically fading away.
Yeah.
And the process of fading away is very close to me, because this concept of impermanence, I'm learning to deal with it, but it's very tough.
Yeah.
Because at that time, during the course of the essay in 2016, my dad, who was like a year younger to him, fell sort of ill, and he was bedridden. And here was a man who I was photographing. He was his age normally, and he was in his senses, and he was okay. He was like in his 80s when I met him. So he was like in his lower 80s, and now he's 91. So it's a tale about people being thrown into their circumstances and how you look at them, because you look at your own
Impermanence.
yes, and the impermanence of people you grew up with.
And mean a lot to you. And I
Yeah.
noticed that you've dedicated this book to your father.
Yep.
So sounds like there was a direct relationship between your losing your father and your being able
Because
to...
he was, I'm like when I met him, I was in my mid-50s. So he was in his 80s, so he was like a father figure, in
Yeah.
the sense. Plus he knew about the city, so he would like tell me about the city and what happened and how Quaid-e-Azam came and what campaigns were happening and how Pakistan was made and how his dad came from Bombay.
Right.
And he had a stepmother as well, because she passed away. His dad was a doctor, and he came here and married his mother. His mother was, mashallah, well-to-do. So this property belonged to her. And the house was about 2,000 square yards. So it was also an exercise in photographing the space and training my eye to look differently, because when you're repeatedly visiting a place, you have to look at things differently as a photographer as well. So there's a change in my way of seeing things in the book also. I can see it, but if you look at my previous work, it is very different. Here, I've entered a house. It's no longer just the city being documented from the street. It is a personal space which this gentleman consented, because I didn't have any agenda. I just wanted to photograph him.
So do you
He
think...
felt confident enough to invite me in.
Yeah.
So it was good.
Yeah.
It was different.
It was different. Do you think that maybe, was it the space that you were in that shifted the eye with your gaze and the eye with which you photographed? Or was it something deeper, the loss of your father, that changed your eye, which made you look at things differently?
My father had not passed away.
He was
He
alive
passed away
then.
last
Yeah.
year. The place was very... it was very colonial and very like with teak furniture and tiled floors and old beds, which there was an attraction in it for me because that's part of my chemistry as a human, I mean, as a photographer rather. So I'm always looking for things which attract me, and wo, fortunately or unfortunately, wo ye hota because the past always attracts me because you've never been there. It's for another time. So it was a very, as I mentioned in the introduction, it was very like a Alice in Wonderland kind of a thing for me.
Yes.
Because it was something which I was not there to see when it was there, Even Karachi as a city, my dad used to tell me it used to be washed 3 times a day, 47 ki baat kar rahe hain. So like it was from a time in which I had not been, so I was very curious and inquisitive about the place, and I could imagine that the colony would be really like very fantastic in its heydays,
Yes.
So up to ye they've all migrated, the young have shifted to America and Canada. I'm talking about the Parsis in Karachi. So there are about 1,000 families which are like intact, maybe in the country.
That's right.
So, and the old people who don't have anybody or who can't be looked after properly are in homes, or they are there with their close relatives.
So, just for those who might not know the history of Karachi, the Parsi community came to Karachi from Bombay mainly when the British came into Karachi around 1849. They made Karachi, a town, and and most of the Parsi families that were in Karachi came to service and provide, merchandise and the shops and services to the British Empire. And everything from the sea, the shipping companies to food, to whatever supplies there were. So most of the families that were there who were from South Asia were in this area of Sadr because they were there to serve the empire. And Sadr was a beautiful area, and it was clean, and it was wonderfully appointed, and it was wealthy, but it was servicing no more than 400,000 people or so at its heyday, right? And naturally, it could be beautifully kept because it was serving a very small population, and that population was generating enormous amounts of revenues that were being spent on Karachi. And I was wondering, Arif, would you like to read something from the book? The Parsi community really, not only did they make their wealth in Karachi, but they spent it as well. The largest philanthropists for Karachi, on whose steam Karachi still functions, were all Parsi. For example, Jamshed Nusrawanji, who set up the Theosophical Society in Karachi, was an incredible humanist, a wonderful human being who cared for donkeys and horses and camels as much as he did for fellow human beings, throughout the old bazaars of Karachi, in Sadr area, etc. There are watering troughs for animals, and major schools and hospitals. You'll see that they were made by the Parsi community. So part of the ethos of the Parsi community is that you take from this world what you need, and you take maybe a lot, but then you give back much more, and because your place in this world is transient, and you come from the earth, and you can only be part of it if you give back to it. So it's a very gentle community, would you say?
Well, it is, but then you have different people, different personalities and character. Magar, for me, it was more than just getting into a community or talking or like accumulating Parsis in Karachi. I mean, I knew that had a big part in the city's municipality and growth. But for me, it was just a tale of this man living alone, by himself. And there was just something attractive about him, just accepting the fact that he's going to go away, because in your late 80s or early 90s, there's not much which you can do anymore. And although he was like able and he could walk and he had a great memory, and he still does, but he was okay. I mean, he was very well read and well known. I remember him telling me that because Virginia Woolf was one of his favorite writers. So when her husband came to Sri Lanka, he especially flew to meet him and get to sort of talk about her with him. So he was a man who was basically a shipping insurance agent who had this very different side to him, and a very chilled and laid back and soft temperament as a human being, So those were the things which attracted me, because the book is basically a compilation of, it's basically a portrait on this man. So that's what it is. Of wo circumstantially, he is a Parsi, wo hai. Because when I was starting the project as a book form, I didn't look at it from that perspective. I just wanted to do it. And it was my gut feeling which took me there time and again to visit him.
So I have two questions.
Yeah, sure.
One is on how do you, as a photographer, stop or know the line between, taking a photograph and keeping it as a subject and shift, somehow being able to manage not having it shift into being voyeurism.
That's very difficult, because I normally don't think about these things when I'm looking through a viewfinder. I'm just shooting, and I'm just looking at how to make the picture look good. So when I used to, in this particular example, when I used to visit him, it was, although he would be talking to me, and I would listen to him for maybe 5 minutes, and then but I would drift away into the visual of the situation. I would see the light on his face, I'd see what furniture there is, and what is happening photographically in the image, And there was this, you get, when you've been on the street and you've been photographing people for a while, you get this unsaid consent where the subject is willing to be documented. So it's not something which I needed to sort of take verbal permission from. The only permission I took was from him when I wanted to do the book project. And he said, all right, you can do it. So that was probably I photographed him for 6-7 years. So maybe after the 4th year or 3rd year, I took that permission. And once he gave me his consent, I would just come into his house and listen to him talk. Once in a while, have coffee with him and photograph him at all times of the day, morning, afternoon, once even at night, after sunset, by 8-ish. 8-ish, I left the place.
So, that was your motivation, but when you put it together as a photo essay, for the person looking at it, and particularly if you're a writer, you keep on looking at the photographs and wondering about the backstory, and you think maybe this could be this, and maybe this could be that, and one of the backstory, there are lots of women in this story that seem to be in his life. Can you speak?
The women were basically people who were affiliated to, or their family was affiliated to his elders, meaning his mother, or his neighbors downstairs, or him down in person. They used to serve him, getting food for him or cleaning the house for him. And then he would they would come to him for financial help. And I know this because I was there photographing him. So he used to help them out financially. And sometimes sell certain furniture also to give money to them, and of course for himself also.
Particularly Lakshmi or Gigi Bai.
Gigi Bai's mother had served his sister-in-law when she was bedridden. So he had accommodated her in his space and her family downstairs earlier on during 2014, I think. And then she used to visit him for finances. So he was very kind to the women, by the way. And he had a neighbor there living also. She was called Babsi. She's gone to Canada now. And her father had looked after him when in his younger days when he had taken trips to Hyderabad. So he didn't charge any rent from the people living with him, you know.
Yeah.
And he was just a man who wanted, I think also wanted company of the people around him. So, and there were a lot of women because they had to keep their families afloat in the tough economics. So they knew him. They all call him Seth. But some of them have not been coming. They have also aged during the course of the assignment. During the course of my going there and compiling work.
So that's almost 7 years of,
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
Yeah. I'm still shooting him.
And you're still shooting him, yeah. How wonderful is that? So is that going to be a follow-up book?
I don't know about that.
Or make this, do a second edition of
Because
this?
now the place is like very, very different.
Yeah.
The plantations and all which you see, they're no longer there because he sold the house. So he's living there as a tenant, a free tenant, but the owners of the house have changed the house in totality because it's become too sterile. I mean, it's not as radiant as when I saw it initially.
Yeah. So I've sort of hogged all the space here, and I just wonder should we open it up for 2 minutes of questions? Okay, right
Sure.
right up here in front.
Gigi.
Do we have a mic?
Gigi, I know.
Can you give her a mic?
For me personally, because I grew up in many Parsi, I don't know why I'm holding the mic.
Is there a question?
Before I sort of lapse into my history, a technical question which may not just be technical but could go into the realm of the poetic perhaps or the spiritual, is the actual inspiration behind the shot. There is the tangible, the space, the frame itself, and then the mise-en-scène or whatever takes place within the frame. And then there is the evocation of that environment, the atmosphere, the time, that moment, the experience itself. Is your work a combination of these, the tangible and the intangible, or are you more inspired, because you can't not be inspired by what's inside you, but is it the physical, the tangible aspects of a frame which inspire you to shoot at that particular moment?
By frame, I'm assuming you mean what I see, right?
From your viewfinder.
Yeah.
Yeah, you see a
नहीं कभी
lot
ये भी
more.
होता है कि when your viewfinder is not in front of your eyes, you're seeing situations, and you're sort of hoping कि if this gentleman or the subject will be on this side or that side. So it happens sometimes if you know the subject, you can sometimes, not all the times, but at times you can choreograph the portrait when there's just purely a portrait. But when there's a moment happening of maybe of him talking to the women, or of him looking at a paper, or of him petting the cats, to for me, the motivator or the initial thing is the light. How is the light looking? Because I picked and chose timings to visit him because once he was comfortable with me in his space and I had a rapport with him. I mean, I never went there and started talking about the state of things in the city or in the country. I mean, he knew that I had a camera around my neck and I was there for the photographs because he could see. I mean, and he wanted to be witnessed. I think he took pleasure of being photographed as well because he liked the attention because he's a total recluse, by the way. When I talked to him and when I told him, listen, why don't you show up at the book launch or will you come to the exhibit because I'm going to have an exhibition on this in May. So he said, no, I don't want to. I don't want to go anywhere. I don't want to be there. And I'll try to cajole him, but like he's not. So although he kept on asking me, why are you doing this? Who's going to buy it? And when I showed him the book dummy initially, when I made a dummy and showed it to him, okay, this is what it is. And he said, why are you doing this? I mean, he couldn't understand from the perspective of finances maybe or economically कि ये क्यों हो रहा है मगर ये इस वजह से हो रहा था क्योंकि ये मैं चाह रहा था कि हो he couldn't get that.
तो वो जो चाहत थी वो आपके दिल के अंदर थी ना, वो tangible तो नहीं थी ना, वो फ्रेम के अलावा थी.
Yeah,
तो
I wanted
that's what took
you see,
there.
once I looked at it as a compilation, I wanted to do this. So I've been lucky to be compiling books. So this was one of the projects which I took upon myself. कि I have to do this because it looked good to me. So that's why I did it. And the gentleman was kind enough for consenting to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful house, old colonial house, that is the soul ready to seize it. Beautiful space. I mean, has this gentleman, like in any way, ensured that after he passes away, like all the other people who are living there will keep the space rather than tear it down?
He sold the house, ma'am. He sold the house to the lower neighbor. His sister has bought it. She's in the States. So he sold the house.
Sold it
So the
and
money's gone to the nephew who's also in the States. So I don't think he really.
There's no stipulation that the house can't come down.
Unfortunately.
Heritage site,
yes,
houses.
No,
there.
it is a heritage site for the law passed किया हुआ है.
Acha.
The government and the city of Karachi. It's a heritage space because Arif Hassan told me that. Arif Hassan written the essay on the book and towards the end of the book. So it is heritage, but he told me, Pastonji said that in the future this will probably become a shopping plaza or something. He's talking about beyond Arif Hassan even probably. So I don't know whether this place or this colony is going to survive the test of time because nothing lasts forever
Nothing
basically.
lasts forever. Yeah.
This is part of the history or the memories and the mind for the generations to come. It's really beautiful. It's really commendable.
Thank you very much.
So, Arif, on that note, thank you.